Roll call is not, this is how I have everybody written down, and well, actually I'll go through. So yeah, well, we've got Patty Boy Williams here.
You want me to just, yes,
yeah, just say here or yes or something.
Got
So we're going to do an official just so that we've got it for the record. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Kate Grady Benson.
Kate, you're muted.
Sorry, here.
Sorry. Stacy Petrozzella.
Here.
John Vibert.
Here.
Johnny Carrier.
Here.
Jennifer Wynn notified us that she would not be in attendance tonight. And then Levi Whitcomb. I'm not seeing on. And I believe that takes care of regular members. And then we have Sam Kilpatrick.
Here.
Here. And I am here, and Garrett is here as staff liaison. And then we do have others that have, we've got our guest speakers that I can see are on, but for membership, that takes care of membership for this evening. So yes, if we want, I don't know, John, if you want to do an introduction.
Let's start with yourself, Shannon and Garrett, and then let's say a couple of words, and then we'll jump right into public comment if that's okay. And I apologize for the time for everybody. I have 5 children screaming and yelling in the background. I've got all the doors closed, so I will try to manage as I can.
No problem, and I'll pitch in when needed. So yeah, yes, just so for new members and various people that have called in, I'm Shannon Rutherford, the town planner for Farmington, and have traditionally off and on been liaison for the Green Efforts Committee. And I think that's it at the moment. And so Garrett, go ahead if you'd like.
Yep. My name is Garrett Daigle. I'm the new assistant town planner. I started last week. Before that, I worked for the town of Plainville for 5.5 years, starting as the assistant planner and then as the town planner. And I work for Farmington, and I'll be taking over as staff liaison for Green Efforts.
And if we can, Sam, do you want to do an introduction so that everyone knows your role in all of this?
Sure. I'm Sam Kilpatrick. I'm director of the school facilities, and a lot of times the projects that we're working on come back to school facilities. So I'm here to help coordinate those efforts.
Perfect. Okay. Johnny, do you want me to cycle through the rest of the membership, or we want to?
If you could, that'd be great.
Sure. No, I absolutely will. So then we'll go back in the way I did. I did roll call. So Patty, do you want to provide just a brief summary?
Hi, everyone. I'm Patty Boy Williams. I've been on the Green Efforts Committee now since 2018. I'm the former chair of the committee, and now I am here as the Board of Ed representative.
Perfect. Thank you. Kate, you're next up.
Hi, I am Kate Grady Benson, and I have been on the Green Efforts Committee, I think maybe 8 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. I'm a member of the community.
Perfect. Thank you. Stacy?
I am Stacy Petrozzella. I think I've been on for 3 or 4 years, and I am a member of the community.
Perfect. Thank you. John Vibert?
Yes, I'm new to the committee. This is my first meeting, although not altogether new, because a while back when I was on the town council, I was on the original Green Efforts Committee and was on the committee for several years, and now I'm back.
Great. We're glad to have you back with us. Thank you. Okay, I think I hit all the members, and then our guest speakers, I'll have them do their own intros as they come through.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Johnny Carrier. I'm the newly elected town council, but I've been in town for 20 years, and I've been involved in ZBA for I think 11 or 12, I lost count.
been heavily involved in a lot of the high school building committee activities, both from subgroups to the previous one and the one that we're going on now, and a lot of stuff that's coming up. So I'm excited to be here and look forward to the meeting. Perfect.
All right.
All right, so at this point, I think, Shannon, are you running like public comment? If you see any hands raised or anything like that?
I am, so I can see everybody that's logged in. So I don't know if anyone at this point has any public comment to share with the committee, they can do so now by raising their hand in Zoom. We'll also take questions and comments as part of the presentations that are going to go on this evening. So we'll let the folks do their presentations, but if there's other comments and interest, then we'll certainly, I think, appropriate to allow that this evening as well. And I'm not seeing anyone with their hands raised at this particular time, Johnny, for any general public comment to be made.
Okay, great. And give it one more second here. Then if there's no public comment, then I guess we're going to move on to item C of the agenda, presentations. And our first presentation tonight is, and if I apologize if I get the name wrong, but Kristen Schulte.
That's great.
Student.
Nailed it.
All right, thank you. And the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Johnny. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Kristen Schulte. I'm a resident of Farmington. I live in the Highlands. And I'm representing myself today as really just as a resident. I am enrolled in a master's degree program for public health. My focus is nutrition, not environmental health, but this is a project that I did for one of my courses, and I'm personally invested in composting, and it's something that I would love to see brought to the town. And so this presentation was made more for like a lay person, not necessarily, I imagine people on Green Efforts Committee are probably aware of a lot of this information, but this was for like a general audience. So I'll move through it pretty quickly. And you can let me know if you have any questions. But again, I'm not a professional in this department by any means. It's really, this was information that I gathered to educate myself. So do I have? Okay,
no, I've got it. So I'll do it. So when you're ready for the next slide, Kristen, just let me know and I'll move right along for you.
Thanks, Shannon. So here are just some brief high points of information about food waste, some statistics that I gathered from primary sources. Most of it comes from the EPA or Connecticut Deep. And just basic facts about food waste, how much it makes up of landfills, 22% in Connecticut. It's increasing year to year. Food waste does not break down well in landfills. And the average home, the food waste in the average home consists of 25% of the food purchased. So we throw away about a quarter of what we buy is not eaten. So you can go to the next one. So the EPA came up with this food recovery hierarchy and basically goes from most far-reaching efforts to reduce food waste, which would be, starting at the top, obviously reducing the source, how much you're actually creating, and diverting it to hungry people would be next. Then to feeding animals, industrial uses, and composting. So it really kind of goes in, you could break it up into prevention and recovery, and then recycling, which is where composting falls. And so it's a little bit down on the totem pole, but I think as a town initiative, this is something that we have more control over. To an extent, we can maybe, talk to local businesses about diverting food to food banks, the Farmington Food Pantry, something like that. But I'm focusing more on consumer residential level. Next slide. So why should we focus on composting food? The first issue, I think, is that it's really a socially responsible thing to do. If we look a little bit further than just our own town from an environmental justice standpoint. You can see that a lot of the people who live near landfills are some of the most vulnerable populations, minorities. If you see where the Hartford incinerator is, probably most of us wouldn't want to be living near there. So that's an issue just from a socially responsibility issue standpoint. Economically, it's composting is cheaper to dispose of than other solid waste. So if you can get food waste out of your municipal solid waste stream, we'll be paying less for our fees. And politically, there's not so much mandates, but there are goals to reduce and divert waste. Where the Hartford incinerator is going away, which means we're going to have to transport more waste out of state, which means higher transportation fees, and it's just not a sustainable way to reduce waste, just to put it somewhere else. There's environmental reasons as well, and I think most salient for this audience is that it's accessible from a townwide standpoint. Everybody can compost, whether you have the means at home or not. You know, you could do it in your backyard, but if you don't have that accessibility, then this is where having a service comes into play. Go to the next one. So here's some national initiatives that speak to food reduction waste. Only in the EPA estimates that in 2018, only 4% of wasted food was composted. So there's obviously a huge opportunity to increase that. Go to the next slide. Here's some state milestones as well. I think the most important really is this goal of recycling or diverting 60% of our solid waste away from trash plants by 2024, which is going to be necessary again without the incinerator and landfills closing and new ones not opening up. And based on where we are in 2022 now, the projections are that we are definitely not going to meet that goal by 2024. Another thing not on the slide that has been put into practice is that certain commercial producers of food or large institutions, if they reside within, I believe it's like 20 miles of a composting facility, they are mandated that they need to compost. But currently that's just for commercial that are within that 20-mile radius. So that kind of limits that. Next one, Shannon. And why is it so urgent in Connecticut? All the landfills in Connecticut are running at capacity. In this July, the Hartford incinerator is going to close, and it looks like there's no plans to resurrect that. And there is an ash landfill in Connecticut, and environmental groups are calling for the closure of that as well. So as more waste gets transported out of state, it's going to increase cost to taxpayers, creates additional pollution, creates liability for our state in general for other states' pollution problems. And it's just not sustainable. It doesn't contribute to any state or national waste reduction goals. So I won't read too thoroughly through this, but San Francisco is an example that a highly effective citywide program. I know it's an urban demographic. It's a different landscape, but I think Farmington is, Farmington is not rural by any means. So I think has the sort of infrastructure and the closeness of residents to be able to do something similar. San Francisco did a pay-as-you-throw also initiative, and that was successful, but you can read a little bit about what they did with city composting, and it's been very effective. And other cities have similar programs, other big cities. Why Farmington? We already have an existing recycling program, so people are already primed to recycle. This is something that we would talk more about with Blue Earth, but we do have a designated compost area already. That could be used for people who want to bring their own things there, rather than having it picked up by a facility like Blue Earth. We have the town committee, the Green Efforts, and it's really an opportunity to be a leader in aligning with state and national initiatives to be a progressive town. Go to the next one. There's been pilot programs in other cities. So Durham has one, Haddam has one, Middletown. I know that West Hartford did one a couple of years ago, and it doesn't look like the pilot project moved forward. So it would be really interesting to talk to them about the reasons for that. And, you know, rather than looking at other cities or towns that it didn't work effectively, or, you know, we can learn from their experience and do things differently. So this is an example here. You can read through it. You would get a starter kit. It'd be a pilot program, maybe like 100 residents, 100 households. And this is how it would work. Next one. So conclusion, obviously waste reduction is preferable, but consumer barriers exist. Food packaging sizes, restaurant portions. Composting is way underutilized. It's accessible, and it's becoming more accessible through compost pickup services. And these are my references, and happy to take any questions. Again, I'm not an environmental health professional by any means. So just bearing that in mind, this was more of a, again, an education for myself to share with others.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anybody have any questions for Kristen?
Johnny,
Yes.
this is John Vibert. I did have a question. In one of the later screens, they talked about what sort of things can be composted, and it included meat products. Now, when we did composting, a little composting program here in Farmington with our own personal composts, they were only talking about vegetables and vegetarian things. Has something changed so that the meat products are now included?
I think on, at least from my perspective, on a residential level, I compost fruits and vegetables. I don't do meat products just because I don't know about, you know, animals, attracting animals. But if a service like Blue Earth were to service us, then they would be able to take those kind of products.
Yeah, we can't get enough heat in our compost in our backyard.
Sure.
That, yeah.
Right. So you're right, John. When we've done this before and we were working with the compost barrels, it was just fruits, vegetables, and any lawn and organics. But yes, you need a commercial composter in order to start looking at fish and shellfish and eggs and eggshells and the meat products.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have questions?
I just want to say, Kristen, great job. I love that you put all this energy into this. Is this a shareable document? I mean, is it possible to, because I couldn't read what your sources were at the end, and
Absolutely. I'm happy to send it to
yeah.
everyone, or happy for Shannon has a copy. So if she wants to send it to the group,
Great.
I'm absolutely fine with that.
Fantastic.
Yep. Absolutely. We can follow up in the next day or two and get that out to the full committee. And John, we do have one of our attendees, Bob Hannon, would like to ask a question. So I'm going to go ahead and Bob, you should be able to unmute yourself and participate.
Can you hear me now?
We sure can.
Okay. The question that I have on this is the focus more residential or are we going after some of the commercial establishments as well?
That's a great question. I mean, I think I was looking at this from more of a residential perspective, but certainly the commercial producers are the, you know, generate a lot. So I don't know. I guess that's a question for the committee. But
And I think, Bob, if I can, at this point, it's really just fact finding. So the point of the presentations this evening were educational, to try to get everyone on the committee to the same base level and understand what possible options are, and then whether or not there's something manageable and tangible that the committee could take on as a project to help encourage additional composting in the community, whether that be at the residential level or at a larger scale.
Because what I was thinking on it is, if this is just sort of fact finding at this point in time, I'd be curious from a commercial perspective, how many of the industrial buildings or the commercial office buildings have kitchen or restaurant capabilities, whether or not those would possibly be something that can be looked at. You know, again, that may be a matter of trying to contact some of the businesses in town, see whether or not they have something. I just think it's a bigger bang for your buck if you can get some of the larger facilities, just like with all of the schools. It's a collected market, so that seems to be a better way to maybe kind of focus. And then I guess in tying that in, you have to have a place to put it, because I think Kate mentioned you don't want to do this outside necessarily, because we tend to compete with Avon for the most bear sightings in the state. So that's a bit of a problem. But where would the scraps go? Would they be going to Quantum in Southington? Is that the intent?
So again, this is we're not even to that level at this point. So this is just to, you know, Kristen had her master's project that she wanted to share to try to help provide a baseline. And then we are going to hear from Blue Earth as the next presenter to see what type of systems they offer. And then it's drilling into this to see, are there other people we need to speak to? Are there other options? Should we have someone from Quantum come in and speak? And then start to drill into how do we make this a manageable project so that we can start to get this integrated into the community. I mean, there's some that have already do backyard composting, but clearly more needs to be done if we want to try to divert meaningful percentage out of the waste stream.
If Shannon, if I could interject just to give some background. The committee decided at its last meeting that it wanted to move forward with a waste reduction as a goal for overall townwide, and composting seemed like a way to do it. So this is an introductory presentation for the options and what the town can consider for moving forward.
Okay, great. Shannon, if I could ask, I know that someone mentioned about sending this out to, you know, the people on this call, but is there a way from in the minutes to link it, or to have a home that, you know, people reading through this at one point can just link to it and go back to it, whether it's through the town website? I don't know the bounds of that, or if that's possible, but
We can, and I can talk to Kristen. You know, if she's agreeable, I could show her where we would put it on the website, and if she's agreeable, we can have it as a resource on our website. So absolutely. So we can.
if the rest of the committee is okay with that, and obviously Kristen, because this is your material. But if, you know, that's something I would like to see.
that's fine with me, and I'm happy to, if anybody has any input and any edits you'd like to see before it gets posted, I'm completely open.
Oh, that's perfect.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kristen or on the slides that we just saw? Okay, great, thank you. We really appreciate that.
Thank you again.
All right, and then we've got,
Moving on to the next agenda item, C2, Sam King, Blue Earth Compost, and a presentation. Sam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Good evening, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about my company, about the broader work that we're doing trying to solve the problems around food waste. Blue Earth Compost was founded in 2013. You can go to the next slide.
all right, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Sam. Your audio seems to be, your microphone seems to be off just a little bit.
Is that better?
That's much better. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll sit closer to the computer. Don't mind
Perfect.
basking in the glow.
That's okay. Thank you.
So Blue Earth Compost was founded in 2013 with the goal and mission of being able to make accessibility born into composting. So being able to make it so that homes that weren't able to compost in their backyard or businesses that didn't have the availability would be able to have the material collected and brought to a composting facility. So we've been working on scaling that up all the way from a small milk run where we would pick it up out of the back of a Volkswagen bus to the point where we're now composting millions of pounds per year from hundreds and thousands of customers all across the state of Connecticut, but also into Massachusetts. We are in this because first and foremost, we're environmentalists. My partner and I, Alex Williams, didn't go to business school. We never knew anything about hauling or driving trucks before this job. We just wanted to do something tangible for the environment. But as you saw in Kristen's presentation, the environment isn't the only reason why this is important. There's also important economic and community factors that also drive us in this mission. Next slide. What we've accomplished over the years is that we are the largest hauler of food scraps in the state of Connecticut. We work with everything from the corner restaurant all the way up to universities, hospitals, grocery stores, and also some of the bigger names in corporations here in the state. We also provide the residential subscription service, as I mentioned before. So we provide service to homes in 19 towns, I believe, in Connecticut, where they can choose to have us pick up at their house. Patty, it's nice to see you tonight. Thanks for using our service. And we've been operating that ever since the beginning, and that's starting to lead us into the municipal realm. So we are lucky enough to say that we've started some of the first municipal programs for collection in the state. We have the first commercial one, so we partnered with the city of Middletown. And actually, I think probably best to, let's move on to the next slide here. Well, I'll just, I guess, finish up on that thought and then we can get on this slide. With Middletown, we started the first downtown district. So all the commercial businesses in their downtown have the ability to compost with us, where we pick it up and they don't pay any additional cost for that. We provide all the training and the signage and the containers as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about our other municipal programs later. So again, this was kind of hit on by Kristen, and she did a great job of doing it. So thank you, Kristen. But we're in a kind of a tough position here in Connecticut right now. The incinerator is closing down in only a few months, and that means about a third of the state's capacity for handling its own waste is going to have to find new avenues out of state. And for all the environmental reasons you can imagine, that's just kind of a bad deal for us. And additionally, that means we're going to be paying more to throw away waste. So that is a really good reason to be thinking about this situation right now. And we're glad to be trying to provide those kinds of solutions for municipalities. About half of food waste happens at the residential side. The other half happens commercially. So, we always need to be thinking about, both approaches. But it's been a very encouraging and humbling thing to be kind of somewhat chosen as one of those solutions by people at DEEP and also by the governor. They point to us as one of those solutions, and we're really happy to be one of the companies that's trying to help solve the waste crisis. Yeah, moving on. Thank you. So that leads me to Feed the Earth, which is our campaign that we launched last year to work with municipalities to provide these solutions. No two towns are the same in Connecticut or in general. And so no two towns are going to use the same solutions. We're trying to tailor our approaches to the individual towns that want to work with us. But we've also found some best practices and some tried and true methods to be able to do this. You know, curbside collections is obviously the front of mind. You know, putting a container at the curb, a third container where you put it next to your recycling and trash and it gets collected. But as Kristen mentioned, there's also the ability of picking up at things like transfer stations. So the people who use transfer stations already have the ability to drop off their food scraps as well as any other material they'd be bringing their own. I mentioned the commercial districts, like what we're doing with Middletown, but also there's opportunities with schools and government buildings. And there is outreach that can be done to commercial entities, whether it be under the auspices of some kind of program that they can participate, or rather just general advocacy and outreach to restaurants that might not know that something like this exists. Yeah, so we've partnered with a number of towns, Branford, Essex. Branford is in a pilot right now for curbside collections. While I think about that, the pilot that happened in West Hartford back in, I think it was 2019, that wasn't a failure by any means. It actually just was never intended to continue after that. The town had gotten funding from the incinerator, the company that formerly ran the incinerator, to do a study on food waste collection. So it was just intended to be a 3-month fact-finding mission. It wasn't that there was anything wrong. In fact, it was actually quite well done. But that was one program, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of those coming up this year, because the state of Connecticut Department of Environmental and Energy and Environmental Protection is allocating about $4.2 million to pilot programs for food scrap collection. So this is, again, a really good time to be talking about it. Next slide. So here's a couple of those solutions that I highlighted in the last slide, just to quickly go through them. They're not rocket science by any means, but just to give you a little bit of overview, and then we can talk about them more in depth if there's questions later. Transfer stations, we would just provide containers. Generally, those are rolling carts, like the kinds that you see at your curb, but they can also be larger dumpsters and such. And customers get outfitted with a starter kit, like you see on the left. Anybody in town generally can participate. It has the rules about what you can put in there, and the collections happen, and the containers get cleaned out, and it's just a really great way, what I think of as a starting point, because it's a very low cost to entry. It's very easy to set up. The outreach is generally pretty good, and you can start, on that sort of on the path of getting something going. Next slide. Curbside collections is, again, something that everybody's kind of used to the concept of. We run a subscription-based service, but we're starting to work with towns that, like I said, with Branford and the other upcoming towns, to do something that looks a little bit more like what you're probably used to with the truck coming to your to every single house in town. These take a little bit more work. There's a number of different methods and sort of philosophies, for lack of a better word, for how to approach this. And rather than kind of get into all of those, I'll just answer any questions that might be present at the end. And then lastly is, moving on, thank you. The last is commercial districts working with businesses, maybe working with schools to figure out solutions that make it so that restaurants could participate as well. And this can, like I said before, be in the state of just education and letting people know what's out there, or if there's the ability to do something where the town is in charge of the budget for certain buildings or offices, then there's the ability to kind of start a more formal program for that. I think the next one's my last slide. Maybe one. Oh no, so funding sources to getting these things off the ground. I mentioned DEEP. They got $4.2 million that they're allocating to about 20 towns starting in July. And those will be sort of hopefully the start of more money coming down in the coming years. So Farmington will have the ability to write the grant to try and get the startup funds for these kinds of programs, whatever they are. As soon as those results come in and we show that these programs are what we should be spending taxpayer dollars on. So it's a really nice amount of money for this amount of programs. It's going to be able to really get some good traction, I believe. And then for smaller projects and projects that there's no deadline on the grant application, there's Sustainable Connecticut. They do matching grants. So if you have a small project like a transfer station, or you want to get something up in the schools, they will help you run a campaign where you raise a little bit of money from different members of the citizens of the town, and they'll match whatever you raise up to, I believe, $15,000. So you can get $30,000 for any kind of project, and they'll match it. It's a great organization, and there's more questions about how to connect with them. I can help with that. So yeah, last slide. This time I'm certain of it. There's my contact information. Please reach out. I'm happy to help with any questions regarding anything I talked about in this presentation. How to best practices for composting in your backyard. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Just let me know. I'll be happy to talk to you about it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sam.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Sam. Is there any questions from the committee at this time?
Johnny, I have a couple.
Sure.
So thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. And for those, just briefly for attendees who are watching who don't know, Farmington is a sustainable CT town. We're not we're a member, but we're not, we don't have bronze or silver status. In terms of the process for the transfer stations, are these, when you've worked with towns, are they towns that have pre-existing transfer stations? Are you creating, like, what are people using? Because Farmington doesn't have a transfer station. And as Bob Hannon mentioned in the prior comments, we have a lot of bears. So wherever the food scraps are, we have to make sure that they're enclosed and ultimately protected from the bears.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, all the towns that we've worked with to this point have a transfer station. This wouldn't be a project that you'd be able to start a whole new transfer station on, but it does sound like there's a place where they're composting yard waste right now. Is that right?
it's an outdoor area in near Tungus Mead.
Right,
So-
and it's
so
for
there's
it's yard debris, so there isn't any, there's no food, not even vegetables or fruit. It's all just
Yeah.
yard waste.
Mm-hmm. So there would be the opportunity to ask for a permit modification on that land from DEEP to be able to do food waste composting in addition to the yard waste composting. That is how you make the best compost, honestly. And if that was something that the town of Farmington wanted to pursue, it would be a really good way to have a close local solution, which cuts down on costs for these things, and also would probably would definitely garner interest from commercial businesses to run that site to make compost. And I say I know that that's the case because we'd be interested in that, running a composting site there to make a good compost product.
And
But to get back to your question, it doesn't, we've seen in some towns that they're able to set up collection points that aren't at transfer stations. Middletown is doing that. They just had to work again with Deep to make sure that they were good. So they set up a collection site at a fire station. But I've also seen, and I think that this is the case in the southwest part of the state, I've seen that they've done it at a school, and another place. I think they maybe have it's a recycling center. So it's not technically a transfer station, but it does. People are already going there with things that they intend to recycle.
And then these areas are so it's a collection area, and then Blue Earth Compost comes and collects in bulk.
Yeah, we collect the material.
And it's been a while since I've checked. Do you know the status of Quantum in terms of where they are in terms of capacity?
I don't know exactly. I couldn't tell you a percentage.
Yeah.
I know that they're very busy. They've definitely gotten, there's definitely more food scraps going there than there were in years past. There is development there are different projects in development in the area. So we wouldn't really have to worry about a bottleneck if Quantum wasn't able to take everything. But they do have capacity.
Okay.
They have some capacity left.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll let others ask questions.
Hey, Stacy, you have your hand up?
Yeah. Are there any pilot programs for schools, or do you have any experience doing entire school districts or individual schools?
Yeah, we've worked with a number of schools, and we love actually working with schools because not only is it mean that we get more food scraps out of the waste stream, but also means that we get to give kids the opportunity to learn about this. So they're always very near and dear to our hearts. None of them really were started as pilot programs. They were just we just kind of went in there and started it with one school and then rolled it out to the other schools. But we work with Canton and Brantford for public schools. We started the West Hartford program, and then that was handed over to Paynes, which does all of the hauling for the town of West Hartford. We work with a number of private schools and some smaller independent schools as well. But yeah, we have a lot of experience there, and we love helping to get it up and going. One quick thing about that is, we're not just in it for doing the work. We're also there for being there for training and consulting as well. So we can provide some of that, and we also have a number of nonprofit partners that can help schools get up and started with those kinds of programs.
And can you share, not obviously financial information that it's private, but what type of financial guidance can you give us for what it would cost to start a program and how much that would save the town, or all those numbers available to us?
For schools?
Yeah, or all of this sounds great. I'm all in, but somebody on town council is going to want to see some numbers at some point.
Yeah, so sharing numbers, it really has to do with knowing what the scope would be. So it's always easier for me to be able to know what specifically you'd be asking numbers for. And I think though, not to kind of punt on that question, but it's always better to kind of be able to sit down with administration and kind of get an idea about what they'd be looking for. But to give you an idea, maybe just more broadly, schools are easy to start out. The kind of the dynamic with schools is that you can think about it from the perspective of capturing kitchen waste versus capturing all waste. So kitchen waste is very small often in public schools because a lot of things are being prepackaged. So you could collect that for $100 a month. If you're actually able to do the work to get all the kids participating and sorting, and you're doing a good job of it, a school is usually about $250 a month. And that's really where the benefit comes from, because that's where most of the waste is, and also again because you're exposing kids to that concept of the importance of composting. There's a lot of talk about how composting can be a money-saving thing, and it is cheaper to process food waste than it is in compost than it is to have it incinerated or landfilled and trucked far away. The money savings hasn't borne out yet, though, to this date, because of the transportation costs aren't quite there yet. All of the people who are doing food scraps hauling are traveling distances between customers. There's not the density that waste haulers have. So there hasn't, at this time, it doesn't save money for a town at this time, unless you get that grant money. The other dynamic is working on projects in which, again, you're processing the material locally. So if you're processing the material and hauling the material, then you might be able to save money as well. Again, that's getting into the weeds and it's very vague, but I hope that answers.
Thank you.
I mean, and if I could just put an addendum on that, the price for throwing things in the trash in MSW is only going to continue to rise, and the price for doing composting is going to continue to drop. So that's the dynamic that doesn't exist right now, but is going to exist in the future. So that's a good reason. But we shouldn't always, and I know I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here, talking to the Green Committee, but this isn't just about money; it's about the environment, obviously. And if we continue on the path that we are on, the costs for our health, for the environment that we live in, are going to be much greater than a small delta between picking it up separately and composting it versus putting it in the trash.
Thank you, Sam. Is that what all you have? Stacy, I'm going to pass it on to Sam. I see you have your hand up.
Yep, thank you. I'm good.
Great. Yeah. Excuse me. You actually answered about 3 of my questions in that last bit there. But to tag on, the minute we're charged per ton after the incinerators go down is so it's more a matter of cost avoidance when that happens than it is a matter of saving the dollars right now, for me anyway. But my question, and you touched on this, but in a school setting, are you typically trying to collect clean in the kitchen, like you said, or are you trying to capture waste from the plate? And if so, how have you done as far as quality control, where that goes? Do you have any issues with that in elementary settings, for instance, with what you're actually taking out of there for the material?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I mean, we always want to be able to collect. It's really what it's about building the home.
And we're having trouble hearing you. I don't know.
Oh, my apologies.
Thank you, Sam.
Still bad, or is it still good?
Better. No, better.
Yeah, so we always want to collect from the plate if we can. You do run into issues of the potential for contamination in those kinds of situations. And that's really just about having the proper guidance and having the proper kind of ability to coach the people who are participating. We do see it, contamination, and we do work with our customers to try and mitigate it. But we're coming to the table with the best management practices around these kinds of things. And thankfully, we have some nonprofit partners that have resources that they can dedicate towards being in schools or or consulting from things like Zoom. What it really takes is it does take a champion in every school that's going to do it, somebody who's willing to make sure that it gets off the ground. But if you look at some of our longstanding programs, like in Canton, they're doing quite well, and we rarely ever see contamination. West Hartford, before we handed that off, we were seeing really good results as well. So it's just about building that culture, and then once it's something that's ingrained there, which usually takes about a couple of years, then it's rocking and rolling.
Hey, Sam, is that all you have?
Well,
Yep.
I guess I'll just tag on and ask, so if you were going to look to do a pilot program in a school building, for instance, what type of grade level would you target? I guess is my question, as far as, where have you seen immediate success, I guess? Is it the elementary level? Is it the high school level? Does it really not make a difference?
If you wanted to stage it in that way, I would recommend starting it at the elementary level.
Thanks.
Thank you. And then if there's any other questions from the committee, and then if not, we'll pass it on. I see Robert Hannon has his hand raised up.
Actually, could I ask one question, Johnny? Sorry. Hi. Yeah, I do know that you work with Miss Porter's school, and they're very happy with you. And the program has been going for a couple of years, and they're happy with it and feel like it's going well. So one of the questions for the grade school level, when you work with the schools, do you have people from Blue Earth that come in and stay for a bit, helping out, and then kind of release it to the school system? Or is it, here's the program, you get the people on board to kind of monitor it, and then it moves on its own? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I think the best role that we play in those kinds of program starts is obviously working with administrators, kitchen, anybody on the maintenance crew, and whoever is going to be the champion, to just kind of roll out and figure out what the rollout's going to be, and how the kind of flow of operations will work. And then we provide the training to any kind of any kind of staff. We provide the signage that they can post anywhere or share digitally. And then I really like having the ability to speak at a lunch session, or record a video, or something like that. It's usually very short. Just gives the kids an opportunity to learn about it and get it from a new face that they're not accustomed to seeing. So it helps to build some of the gravitas around it, I think. And then the nonprofit partners that I mentioned, the one that we work with most frequently is called the Center for Eco-Technology, or CET for short. And they can do a little bit more of that hand-holding if it's needed. All the schools have different rules about guests right now, but they do have the ability to come into schools and help with sort of that sorting on the lunch lines, or even just consulting about the best flow for those kinds of things. So yeah, going into those kinds of situations, you wouldn't be having to figure everything out yourself. We know that the real success comes when our success comes when your success comes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Robert, if you had a question, you can right now.
Yeah, a question or two and a couple of comments. And the comments side, I know that there are other schools in the state that have had composting projects in the past. Warren Elementary School, I think, did. There's one out in the eastern part of the state. Mansfield, I think, was a junior high school that was doing it. So you've got a bunch of other programs out there. But I just want to verify something that you said, Sam. It's like $4.2 million is being made available from DEEP for food waste collection. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I'm just I just got distracted by something. Could you ask that question again?
Sure. Did you say earlier that DEEP is allocating $4.2 million for food waste collection programs?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, because here's sort of where my question comes into play, because as far as I know, the only two licensed composting facilities in the state, it's EarthGrow and Quantum, which covers the western part of the state up to Southington, but there's nothing in the eastern part of the state I'm aware of. And I know that in terms of trying to get new facilities licensed, one of the issues I've had with DEEP is that they've been looking at too high of a capacity for electric generation out of some of those facilities. So do you know if the agency is changing the rules or allocating funds for increasing the number of licensed facilities in the state so that we can start hitting other parts of the state?
So what I would say about that question is that DEEP is not changing its rules about how to permit a composting facility. They are trying to make it easier to go through the process. But none of that $4.2 million is designed around composting facilities themselves. There is a little bit of an update to the number of facilities that are accepting food waste from maybe the last time that you looked. There's a facility out in the northeast corner that's new. There's a facility going online later this year in Enfield. There's two test facilities, one in Stonington and one in West Haven. And there's a number of other ones that are in permitting. So if your worries around capacity, I would, and also, just on the other side of the border, we all are a small state. There's other ones that are accessible. So if you're worried about capacity, I would, do everything I can to assuage those concerns. There is capacity to collect this material. And yeah.
Well, it's not so much just capacity, which is an issue. But again, as was mentioned earlier, you've got the statutory language where if you have a composting operation established, you now have that 20-mile radius. And for the longest time, it was just EarthGrow and Quantum. So that left a good part of the state that didn't fall under that program. So yeah. I'm glad to hear that there are some other facilities being proposed in different locations across the state, which may make it a little bit easier to tie in that 20-mile radius for collection purposes. So that's a good thing. So thank you for that information.
Yeah, it is certainly a good thing. And that law is important. One thing I would say about it, however, is that it's unfortunately not effective. It doesn't apply to most situations in which food is being wasted. It really only applies to grocery stores, food manufacturers, and event centers, I believe, are the only places that law applies. So in terms of having some kind of institutional, some kind of governmental weight behind having these kinds of programs be implemented, it doesn't do much for, it doesn't do anything for residential mandates, and it doesn't apply to 99% of the places where food waste is generated. Not to put a hamper on it, but the real, I think that their real Deep's real approach is to try and provide the right kind of market landscape for these kinds of things to happen, and not so much a regulatory approach to this problem.
You have any more questions or comments, Robert?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee or the public?
Johnny, if I may, I actually have a quick question. Sam, I know you had mentioned about the transfer stations, and while we don't have a transfer station, we do have the composting for our leaves and whatnot, and that could be amended, that permit amended or brought in to include food scraps, and it would actually provide the nice mixture, right, with the leaves or even the yard waste. Are there other communities that you're aware of that are doing that are utilizing both the yard waste and food scraps and trying to broaden their own composting facility? Is there anyone that you're aware of that's doing that?
Yes. So West Haven and Stonington, the two towns that I mentioned have test projects, have both cited their new food scraps along with where they were already composting leaves.
Okay. And then is that limited to just their residents for bringing food scraps to that location, or their own businesses within their community and municipal boundaries?
Not at this time, no. It's definitely not regulated by any agency. It's just how they actually got both of those sites got probably 90% plus of that material from us, and we brought it from commercial entities and a little bit of residential.
Okay, so it's not necessarily, so there could be some of their own residents participating if they're part of your haul pickup, but it's not, or if they're choosing to drop off there, but it's not limited to just their residents.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any kind of limitation on that.
Okay, if they chose to, are they able to, or because they have a state? So like our compost for our yard waste, it's limited to Farmington residents only. So the ability to drop off yard waste, and also the ability to take any of the compost or the mulch that is there from the yard waste is limited to Farmington residents only. Do you know if they were to broaden that to food scraps and we wanted to limit it to Farmington residents only, is there an ability to do so?
Yeah, you could certainly set up a town ordinance that would, or whatever means, in order to limit it only to residents. The thing that, and this would get into composting science, is making sure that you have the right balance of materials to make a proper compost, but that's another matter.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any last questions before we move to the next agenda item? All right, thank you, Sam. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, and feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. Many thanks to you, and Kristen, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this evening, both of you, for taking the time out of your personal time to do this. So it's appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
You're
All right. Moving on to the next agenda item. So this is to, if I can get a motion to January 4th, 2022 minutes.
Motion to, oh, sorry, Patty.
Oh, all right. I move to approve the January 4th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Okay, Kate, you're seconding.
I will second it.
All right, discussion. So all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? And I will abstain since I wasn't at the last meeting. All right. Moving on to item E, publication goal for anti-idling. This one you'll have to bring me up to speed on.
Well, Sam and I are working on that together. So maybe I'll just say what I know, and Sam, you can fill in, or if you want to talk first, doesn't matter. But presently, what transpired, Johnny, was that we were looking at some options that the committee could do this year, kind of immediately, that would have an impact on the community. And the anti-idling kind of rose to the surface. And so what we did to start with is look at each of the schools to see if they had anti-idling signs up outside on their loading docks. We discovered there was only one sign at all of the schools, and that was at IAR. And then more conversation and research was done to look into, how do we start up an anti-idling campaign? And, the thought was to have it be in the schools, of course, where there's a lot of idling happening as kids are getting picked up, and hopefully the school buses are not idling, because that, that's something that they shouldn't be doing, and they know they shouldn't be doing. So we batted that around a bit, and then Sam, I spoke with Tara Vasquez, who's actually on the call tonight, over at Westwoods. And Sam, I'll just pass it to you for what transpired there, and then we'll go, and I'll come back on.
Right. So the first thing we looked at was, like Kate was saying, putting up anti-idling signs at areas where trucks might be for unloading, but then we were trying to come up with a solution for parent and student pickup and drop-off areas. We looked at the option of kind of a generic sign, which when I brought it back to the principals, kind of thought, well, let's get students involved with this. So that's when I went to Tara, who leapt at the opportunity to kind of integrate it into the curriculum at Westwoods as the stewards of the air, part of that curriculum. And Kate actually helped to film a call to action for that as well. So students are going to be learning within the curriculum about idling and what it does, and then working on some designs. So there'll be 8 signs that come out of this that are part of this competition with the students, and those will go one to each of the schools, one at Town Hall, and really the push is to bring the students in, to kind of take ownership of this problem that we see at each of the schools, and design something that kind of rectifies the problem.
Yeah, it's a great collaboration, and thank you, Tara, for really helping us get it as part of the curriculum for 5th graders. I think that we also have a connection with DEEP in picking up, in applying to get the signs. We were able to find a person who's willing to do a taped kind of, I don't know if you call it a tutorial or a kind of interaction with the kids that they'll get to watch, and that Tara is arranging for that to happen as well. So that's great. We also have a brief article that's in the town newsletter that's coming out about the anti-idling project.
And just to note, unfortunately, it looks like Tara had to drop off, so she was on for the first part of the meeting. Perhaps she didn't realize there was the guest speakers this evening. So she was on earlier, but she has since had to drop off.
Okay.
Just as an FYI. So
yeah, well, that's good to know. We spoke again today, or actually yesterday. And one of the things, we're always looking for is involvement of the community in our projects, and we need more help with the projects that we want to do. And one of the things that she asked was whether the kids at the school, like every year, that a representative from the school as well as a teacher representative is part of the planning process at the beginning of the year for green efforts. And that there's a project that they can do, that they can be part of, interfacing with the Green Efforts Committee. And then just having this be something that happens every year, and so that the school system is involved. And she wants to explore that with us, the possibility, and I think it sounds like a great idea. The other part of this anti-idling program is at the tail end of it. After they've collected some data, they're going to be doing some research as well at the school, kind of collecting anti-idling information and post anti-idling information to see if they've changed any behavior of the parents and their idling. So they're going to have all that, and then they're going to write it up, and would like to have it, their article published on our website. And maybe a platform for them to come on to a Green Efforts Committee meeting at the end of the year where they can present their research and what's happened at the school. So kind of a nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's all something that's doable, and we can even post it on the Facebook page, right? So they can get some social, not that the kids, they don't consider Facebook social media, but for the old folks social media, we can get it posted there, and then they can Instagram it and Snapchat it if they want. But absolutely.
Thank you. That clarifies a little bit. So I got to imagine that since COVID has hit and the number of drop-offs that have been happening, it's only gotten worse. And being part of the building committee over the last couple of years, I've heard how it's a pretty difficult time for drop-off and pickup. And hopefully that subsides and gets better. I will say from a commercial front, and I know this is off topic a little bit, but even all the trucks that we buy now have anti-idling technology in them. They're made to shut down after so many minutes, whether it's our dump trucks or the tag-alongs, the big puff, and even some of the pickups that we have on the road, stop at intersections. The engines actually shut off when you sit. And I know some of that technology is helping with a lot of that, especially on the commercial side. So, but I could see from a residential side, especially in and I've only had to do drop off a couple of times, and I will tell you that is not a fun event. I just caution you, bring it up more when it's not 0 degrees outside.
Yeah, I think most people don't even realize what happens when they're idling. I don't think they even realize what they're emitting into the air. And then they've got those little windows with those little cuties sitting inside that are breathing all that stuff in.
And to add to that, 15, 20 years ago, we were all taught you use more gas every time you turn your engine on and off than leaving it on. And now engines are more efficient, so that's changed. So part of it is an educational component too for folks who learned how to drive 80s, 90s earlier. So
sure.
Okay, thank you guys for that. Any other thoughts on the anti-idling?
Kate, you guys were going to make a present to go to the school to present at some point, or wasn't that part of?
Yeah, so Sam and I were going to do what Tara wanted us to do, is to be recorded so they could show it whenever they could. And unfortunately, COVID got in the way of Sam, and I was there. I did a little bit of a pitch, which will be shown. So Sam, maybe they'll superimpose you next to me.
You should share it with us so we can all applaud your stardom.
I don't know. It was, oh, geez. No, I'm sure it's not the greatest, but it's a call to action, really.
Perfect.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item, an update on the simple recycling.
Yes, and that falls to me. So the simple recycling is continuing to move along well, and in the winter newsletter, we'll have an update. But here, so on my screen is the Excel spreadsheet with the totals for the last portion of 2021. So you can see, so this column here is in pounds. So we've continued to have, again, surprisingly anywhere from 4,000 to 2,000 seems to be the lightest. The August is always light because of all the vacations, but pretty consistent in the total volume continues. So for the, I'm trying to look here. So the total C30 and B31, C30. So we're looking, there's a total of we've hit almost 50 tons since the start of the program in December of 2019. So, which is pretty impressive. You know, when you look at the total volume, so almost 100,000 pounds of textile recycling of stuffed animal clothes, towels, old sheets, old socks. It's kind of remarkable that there's been that much since we started the program. And then just so that's almost 50 tons for the start of the program, and that we were at about just 21.3 tons for 2021. So, and there'll be a little snippet in the winter newsletter, so it'll show there.
Okay, great. Thank you for the update.
Mhm.
Questions on that? All right.
Shannon, what's the current tip fee?
The current tip fee, I want to say it's around 80. I'd have to ask Mo at the highway garage. I want to say it's around 80 a ton was the last I saw, but it was going up. It could be up over 100 now. I'm not sure. So I'll ask Mo and get the actual number for you.
Yeah, thanks. Just curious.
No, I understand, because it's nice to be able to translate that to dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Shannon, one question.
Yes.
The numbers you were showing, that was just for the cloth recycling?
Correct. That's textile recycling only. So that's just the simple recycling that it had been going along with the regular recycling from a scheduling, and now they've moved to an online scheduling. So there's 2 or 3 days a month that you can schedule a pickup, and it seems that that transition has gone rather smooth. So folks have been able to adapt to that modified schedule, and it seems to be working well, which was nice to see that we really didn't see a complete drop off on the program, which was good.
Thank you.
Yes,
Great. Thank you, Shannon.
of course.
Next, to talk and discuss the 2022 cleanup day.
Okay.
So that's Stacy and me.
Yes.
Stacy and I met a couple weeks ago to discuss kind of this process and whatnot. And I'm transferring some of the paperwork over so she can have a look and make it her own. But at this point, the flyer is being revised and should be ready. We did decide to do the heaviest haul competition again this year, which will be great. I think people really do like that. And I told Stacy I would get the prizes.
Okay.
They're going to be really basic, again, just food. And hopefully people will be okay with that I ask. And so that, yeah, that's back again, you know, with COVID, we stopped doing that. So we'll be able to offer that again. So we'll be getting the word out on that. Stacy, do you want to add anything on your end?
Yeah, I reached out to Chris Loomis at the high school. I'm meeting with him on Friday to see if we can get some high schoolers super involved. I'm still interested in this townwide yard sale idea, but it would really only be if a group of high school kids wanted to take it on, because we can't do it as a committee and we can't tap our friends. But if that's something that environmental club would be interested in taking on, then like I could act as their adult. But so we'll see, or what other roles they might want to play in the cleanup day. So that meeting's on Friday.
Great.
The other thing, oh, sorry, go ahead, Shannon.
No, I was just gonna say, just keep us posted because there's, I know you were thinking of IAR as a possible location, and we were thinking of moving the town hall collection site over to IAR. Is that still loosely in the thought
Yeah.
process? Okay. We're
If we were
just,
gonna do that, yes.
great. So just keep me posted because there's a building usage form that the schools have. So even though you're not actually using the building, but you're using the parking lot, it still has to be completed. And so our highway guys do it for the high school for the household collection, the household hazardous waste collection. But we would need to do the same thing. And obviously fire departments just need to be notified. I don't know, are you guys all set with doing that, or?
Yeah, I usually send out a notice to them. I email each of the chiefs
Gotcha. Okay.
ahead of time. So
Okay.
unless if there's a better way that I should be doing that, I mean, that's just kind of what I've done. Okay.
Nope, that's perfect. That's perfect. Just knowing that we were going to move to a school, that I know there's a form that you probably haven't been used to having to do in the past. So
No.
that would be the only thing. And it's pretty easy. And it's a call to the front desk. They should be able to get it to you and then coordinate. And if there's any questions, they'll follow up with you directly.
The one thing that we're going to need to do is order more bags, and also stickers to replace the date stickers on the signs that we have.
Okay.
And I've gone through fast signs out in, off on Route 44 the last couple of years because the one closed in Bristol. So if it's okay that we just go ahead and order that. I don't know if we need to vote on a cap for costs, but usually what I do is have them send an invoice to the town, and it's paid through you. And then as far as the bags are concerned, what I've done is purchase them and then I get reimbursed. Yeah.
I think that's fine. I know there's, from a budget standpoint, I'm confident that there's money available. It's been a bit since I've asked Joe, but I know there's money that is available. So, yeah, what are you thinking that it normally runs? Kate? Do you have
It's gonna
any
be,
other-
yeah, it'll be less than $500.
Okay.
The stickers tend to run around $150.
Yep.
And then I try, to buy in bulk from places. The one thing of me buying it is that I'm not getting, kind of a nonprofit status.
If they, yeah, okay.
The thing is, I'm not buying huge quantities because I'm storing all this stuff at my own house.
Nice. Yeah, no, I get you. So, okay. Let's touch base offline tomorrow, but
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe
sounds
we
good.
probably should have a motion for a cap limit, a motion second and a vote just for $1 spending. And then you and I can touch base offline. I can talk to Russ to see if there's a better way to do that might be a little more efficient.
Great. Yeah.
I'm happy to have that conversation.
Keep me informed on that too, because if it is some reason there isn't the funds there, this is, kind of the good part of being in the business community. There's always a business looking to sponsor something or do something that would cover some of that if the funds aren't available. And I can definitely help with that if you need to.
Okay. Yeah, I'm confident. So we might need that for some of the heaviest haul, the donations for the prizes for heaviest haul. But
Yeah.
I think yeah, because some of the money, so some of the environmental savings for some of the projects that have been done have been earmarked to go to this group. So I'll get that from Joe, but we can, like I said, I think if we get a motion and a vote for a $500 cap, then we should be good to go, and we'll tackle that offline then.
Okay. Is there someone who wants to make that motion?
I move to allocate up to $500 so Kate and Stacy can purchase the equipment needed for cleanup day.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, John. Any discussion? We got one up, so, All right, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, perfect. Okay, anything else to add on the cleanup day?
This is John. Kate, the movement of the station away from the library over to Irving Robbins, has that decision been made?
Well, it hasn't been finalized, but John, I will tell you, for the last 5 years, we get maybe 2 to 5 people that come there at the max. It's a very low yield spot. And, you know, I put volunteers there, and every year they are just like, well, I really felt like I did something. People just bypass it. They go up to the hazardous waste, or they go to the electronics. Most of the people are coming for the shredding. I mean, that shredding is a major draw for that area, and they just go right past the cleanup table.
I'm just thinking that if we're going to make that decision, I think we might want to get that information out to the public as quickly as we can.
Yes, yes. Well, and you know, Stacy and I will be revising the flyer, and then also, yeah, we'll definitely get that out there.
Well, and then we'll have it in the newsletter, and it'll be on the website, and we can do a couple of email blasts and Everbridge blasts with the flyer. So we can, and Rose on the Explore Farmington page. So, and I think it'll be good, because right now the furthest east we go is the Farmington Fire Department. So this might help get, you know, that whole East Farms neighborhood that, you know, and Tunxus Mead's a huge draw, and I think that Tunxus Hose is a good draw for Unionville. And I'm assuming both you ladies saw the email that I sent about the Trails Committee, so the Farmington Trails. So we just tweaked the notice a little bit that's going in for the winter newsletter, to say that the Trails Committee will also be participating directly with cleanup day efforts. And so presumably there's additional person power that we'll tap into with Bruce Sear and the Bicycle Advisory Committee and the Trails Council, because they are not doing their own separate clean up the trails day, and they're pretty much delegating it back to the municipalities and the municipal representatives. And so the thought was to try to add that energy in and that person power in on April 23rd when we do our cleanup day. So hopefully that helps with bodies. So
Hey,
Great.
Shannon, do you have who's the contact that we would get a hold of to make sure that we get the right information from them?
So my colleague Bruce Sear, who's the senior assistant town planner, and he is the one that is the staff liaison to the Bicycle Advisory Committee, which is basically a comparable committee to you folks, just handling all things bicycle and trail related. So he's really the point person, and I honestly don't know the Trails Committee or Trails Council person, so I'd have to check in with Bruce on that. But that's
okay.
That's the chain of info. So once we've got a flyer ready, then we'll make sure that they're integrated into it however they need to be.
Yeah, I can reach out to Bruce. Don't worry about that. Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything under other business?
I have one thing I saw. This is a quickie. I got an email from a friend of mine who noticed that the state is getting a very large sum of money to put charging stations in throughout the state. Their goal is really big, and I don't know if it's something that we want to look at as far as trying to get a grant to get a charging station in the town. I can get that information to you. I'll send that separately.
Perfect. Yeah, send it in and we'll take a look.
Yeah, Johnny, for your benefit, the items that we discussed for committee goals, one of them was the charging station, because we decided it was very discreet. It was a single task that could move forward in an easy way and didn't require as much pre-planning. So thanks, Kate.
Johnny,
Yes, John.
I have a question. This is really jumping back to the presentations on composting. Several years ago, the town had a program where they provided compost bins to residents at a discounted price, and to encourage people. And we had a number of presentations about the best way to compost and so forth. Has anybody ever reach out to the people who have those bins to find out how that personal composting is going?
No, we never did, John. We didn't do follow-up with the purchasers.
So as we were going through the presentation today, I was sort of thinking about in terms of the compost bin I have in my backyard. And I find it quite easy to have a composting bin in my backyard. All my vegetable scraps go there. It's really easy to do. And it seems like a lot simpler way than to have set up roadside collection as they're being presented today. Now, I'm not sure if my my experience is different from most, because I certainly have any problems with animals or anything like that. But an idea might be to, before we think about roadside collection, maybe we should check back to see how the backyard composting is going.
John, I can chime in that part of it too with the roadside, it creates more equity. It's easy, folks can do it easier. They don't have to go to, they don't have to learn, they don't have to get a compost barrel. They put something in a bin and they give it to someone else to handle and do it right. And I can speak to my own experience with backyard composting. I have never been successful. I've never gotten the right mix of greens and browns. It's never broken down right. I just end up with, you know, a barrel of stuff. So I think part of it is it's to try to get more people interested in it and not have and try to have it be more town-wide as opposed to the folks who are really committed. I'll tell you too, my kids hated it when I was doing backyard composting. They did not want to bring stuff to the back. The fact that I do it through Blue Earth right now, they're more than happy to participate. So that's my anecdotal evidence.
Well, and I think just two other things, I think depending on the size of the household too, drastically changes the volume of composting. So a 2-person household, a 2 or 3-person household is different than a 4, 5, or 6-person household. So the volume of material is very different. And with the curbside composting, the variety of material that can be composted greatly expands, as we talked about with the meat, fish, egg type products that could be included if we go to a curbside or transfer station type system, as opposed to the backyard, which we can't do. So it's trying to get it to a broader audience. We also have a wide variety of lot sizes in town. And so while it might be easier to accommodate on a 20, 30, 40,000 square foot lot or larger, our neighbors that have 5,000, 9,000, or 12,000 square foot lots may find that the backyard composting, it doesn't easily fit into their yard and their day-to-day activities. So that's just other things to think about. But John, I'd have to go back and look. I'm not sure. I honestly don't remember what contact information that I have for each of the purchasers, and being able to even get in contact with them, because it's been a number of years at this point.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other business? All right. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you having me aboard. At this point, if there's no other comments, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Oh.
So we'll take Kate on the first one and Stacy on the second one, if I got that right.
Perfect.
Great.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks, everyone, for calling in. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.